I mean, they specifically asked us all which products are we using, so that they didn't buy, because we used to just have the master collection for everybody, but I use Dreamweaver, Photoshop, and maybe InDesign.
Yeah.
That's all I ever use out of the collection, so there's no point in buying the master collection for 3 products.
Yeah. Okay.
So they did it for all the people that use it throughout the agency.
Sure.
Now they download it to a central server here and do the initial distribution that way, but then the updates are done in the cloud.
But I mean, at least you guys have figured out how to make this work.
Yeah,
The
so
whole
Laura
situation.
Boyd is the person who took care of that.
Is
for
anybody
us.
else doing anything else? I mean, does anybody else use, GIMP or Inkscape or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, is it just you personally, or is that the agency set a tool set?
People at our agency who just use GIMP or use like virtual dub mod for videos and stuff, but it's sporadic at best when they need it.
Yeah. And do you have other people that are using the Creative Suite for?
We have one person, the whole agency who uses Creative Suite, and it's a really old version.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
We've
Stu?
got Adobe 6 now, but myself and the retired person have a copy of the Web Studio in our Public Affairs office. We have a person down there that has the Print Studio, so it covers the bases. And our plan was to go to SharePoint Designer when we switched to SharePoint. And when I went for some SharePoint training a month ago, it was interesting that they said, oh, SharePoint Designer isn't for designing the site anymore. They took that out of it because they were having some issues. People were blowing things up with putting their own design into it. And so now it's mainly just for designing the workflows and stuff. So they said if you want to do a lot of design work, then you can do it in like Dreamweaver and export it. So I don't know what we'll do.
Well, as far as that, I'm using Visual Studio 13, and it's gotten a lot better for the design aspect than what it used to be. But I do a lot of coding too, so it's handy to have both together.
Sure. Okay. Michael, one more question. Did you guys do any, figure out the numbers to figure out if you guys are actually saving money or not, or is that?
That would be a question for Laura.
Okay. I was just curious.
Because I'm sure that was part of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we had just recently updated to 5.5. So.
Okay. All right. We'll get on with the show here. We've got Scott Hulsman today from DNR here to talk about .NET Nuke. Thanks, Scott.
Hey, everyone. So, yeah, I work for the Department of Natural Resources. I'm the Forestry Division Web Coordinator over there. I've been over there for a little over 2 years. Before that, I was actually at Department of Transportation, where I was essentially the DMV webmaster for a little over 4 years. But my time has actually been used a lot running my own business. I've been actually in business for 20 years. And way back in the day, back in late 90s, I hooked up with CUNA Affiliates. I built a content learning management system for them, total from scratch, built it in classic ASP, SQL Server. I wrote the first content learning management system for American Family Insurance back in 2000, 2001. I built a a content management system for lots of small businesses for my own company back around 2003. So I really got into this whole CMS thing. And back in the day, when I would write all this custom content or custom programming and such, I stumbled upon what now is known as a content management system, primarily 2 of them. The first one I'm going to talk about today, it used to be called .NET Nuke, now it's just called DNN. DNN actually has been around since 2002, and the real neat thing about DNN is that it runs on a whole Microsoft platform. So just curious, how many folks here are actually running a Windows Server? So maybe half of you. I also have a lot of experience working in Joomla. Have you heard of Joomla as a CMS before? So if you want, I can make this, the DNN side, a little shorter and get into Joomla if you want to kind of see how that works. Otherwise, I was going to just talk about DNN today. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So this is going to kind of sound like a sales pitch for DNN. I'm just standing up here thinking about this. Again, I've been kind of doing my own thing for a long time. I've got a whole bunch of clients on the outside of DNR, so by day I come to work and I do my thing, and at night I go home and I do this. And I wanted to talk about this. Last month you got to see the Win CMS that they're working on, which is based on SharePoint 2013. And you got to see some Drupal. So I kind of wanted to just maybe broaden the horizon a little bit and kind of show you what I've done with DNN and maybe get into Joomla if we've got time. So I'm at the primary website for DNN. It's dnnsoftware.com. And like I said, the cool thing about DNN is that it runs in the Microsoft ecosphere, I guess. Or it runs on IIS. It typically uses SQL Server as the database backend. If you're familiar with IIS and how all that works, you can basically go out here and you can grab a copy of the software. You can install it on a server. You can connect it to a SQL database. I've done it probably 30 or 40 times. I'm actually running like 5 instances of DNN on my own server. So I contract with a company called Rackspace. You ever heard of Rackspace? Basically, I pay them X amount of dollars per month, and they give me an entire server. So I've got DNN running on it. I've got some other legacy ASP applications running on it. So you can go out to dnnsoftware.com. You can learn all about DNN, what's going on. This scares the hell out of me. Right now, the current version of DNN is version 7. And they went to 7.0 about 2.5 years ago, in version 6. Now, you're seeing this evoke. DNN basically comes in 3 flavors. It comes in a community edition, which is just DNN. The community edition is free. Now, .NET Nuke started out as kind of an open source, just a collection of people getting together, doing their thing. And like 5 or 6 years ago, they actually incorporated. They became a for-profit company. So you've got a for-profit company actually building the software, maintaining the software base, doing their thing. But they make a community edition available for free. So you can go out, you can grab it. It's got a lot of bells and whistles in it. It does a lot of amazing things. You can install it, get up and running. If you want to go beyond that, you can go to this Evoke product, which used to be called DNN Professional. And it just has more bells and whistles. And it also has the opportunity where you can actually work with the company, DNN Corporation, and get some support. If you're having a problem, and you will have problems at some point, you can work directly with them. They also have an Enterprise Edition. So if you really want to go for it, the Enterprise Edition is like, I don't know, $8 grand a year or something like that. But they not only provide the software and provide help if you need, but they also have like other functional elements like SharePoint connectivity, for example. So there's like this whole gambit of things that you can do if you want to go to the Enterprise Edition. So,
Is
say?
that just called Enterprise Edition, or?
It's still called Evoke. So what DNN did was like 1.5 years ago, they totally rebranded everything. So their Evoke product is really what the company is selling, and that's the professional version. They want you to buy into their software. They want you to have a relationship with them, and you can do the professional, like I said, the enterprise. But for those of us living in the real world who can't afford that, the community edition works great, and that's what I'm going to actually demonstrate today. So in the 30 minutes or so that I have, I can't really even dip my toe in the water, so to speak, as far as showing you what this thing can do. So I'm just going to do my best, and I'm going to skim over a lot of things. And if you've got questions, I have some business cards I can hand out, and you can always contact me. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a taste here. So my own website is, I call myself the Hillsman Way. And like I said, I've been in business for about 20 years. I've been running this site for about 10 years. It's at hway.com. This is running, like I said, DNN 7. And this is the home page. It's got kind of a rotating banner mechanism. It's got some content, some animation. I've got some functionality down here if you want to sign up for my newsletter, for example. Some stuff here at the bottom. And then I've got some navigation going on over here. So, for example, if you want to learn a little bit more about who I am, I basically run this business with my wife, so that's me and Susie. It's got some, like, JavaScript or some simple things going on. Now that's all part of the skin, which I'm going to get into in a second. So this is just a simple, relatively simple website. I'm running, I don't know, several dozen sites in DNN right now. But I wanted to kind of give you the front end here a little bit. Just kind of, this is what the front end looks like. This is what people see when they go to my website. Managing .NET Nuke is actually done inside the browser, and it's done essentially inside of your content. So you notice up here I've got a login button. So I'm going to click on that, and it gives me a prompt. Now watch at the top. You see this black bar just appear up here? That's where all the magic happens in DNN. So all it did basically is add that black bar, but it's got all this functionality available. So in DNN, you install one instance of it, and you can run an infinite number of websites from it. In DNN, they call those portals. So in the instance that I'm running here, my Hillsman Way portal is one of about a dozen that I've got running. Then I've got actually 4 or 5 other instances running independently. But that's an important thing to note, is that I can go to host, and I can do there we go. These are this drop-down menu are all the different sites or all the different portals that I'm running on this instance right now, and I can like jump back and forth if I really want to. So what I want to show you real quickly is up here there's a admin and then there's a host. Now the host user account is like a super user. You can get into the entire application and do everything that you need to do. So obviously, you really want to limit that. I'm really the only host administrator in this instance. The admin item that's showing up now, that's for the individual portals. So, for example, let's say you were running this on an intranet, and you had 30 different organizations that needed a website. Well, you could install one instance of DNN, and then you could create 30 separate portals. And each of those portals could use the same graphic template, which I'll get into in a second, but you can also modify those. So under admin, you can see there's a variety of elements here. I can go in and look at any kind of events that have been generated by the application. I can manage pages. That's probably a good thing to show. So in the page management screen here, what this is showing me right here is my menu, my navigation. In DNN, when you build a page, that page is automatically assigned to your navigation. You don't have to do anything special to make that work. And then I could drag and drop all of these different pages into different parents or wherever I want to put them. And of course, each one has properties set to it, so I can make them visible or invisible, turn them on and off. I can do all these different things. Each portal has a whole series of site settings. So in here, I can go in and say, what's the title of my site? What's the description? I can assign some keywords. I can do some marketing sorts of things. I can go in and I can say, this is what my logo is going to look like. I can assign an image to the background if I want to. I can set my favicon. There's just all these different options. So I'm going to spend like 10 minutes kind of going through the structure of DNN and kind of like how does all these mechanisms work. Again, there's a host side of things where I can go in and do everything to manage the application, and then there's an admin side for managing the individual portals. All right, so this entire look and feel is generated by what we call a skin, okay? And skins, you can build them yourself if you really want to, but there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of skins available. A site that I end up going to quite a bit, and I have literally spent thousands of dollars at. This store here, store.dnn, it's run by the DNN Corporation. But basically there's a whole third-party universe out there of folks who are building skins, building modules, which we'll get into in a little bit, and they essentially make all their work available here. So personally, in the 10 years or so that I've been working with DNN, I have never made a skin. I've always purchased one. And then I've modified them. If a client wanted different colors or they wanted something else, something custom, basically it's just a matter of going into the CSS and changing what you want. You've got complete control. But you try not to do that. You try to find a skin that meets your business requirements and you run with that. So back over here, I can go into skins. And what you end up doing is you end up installing skins into the host environment, the entire application. So when you install a skin, it becomes available to every portal in your instance. And if I really wanted to, as you'll see, I've got maybe a dozen skins already in this instance. I could select mode of navy, for example, and within a few moments, my entire skin would be replaced with this one. I could show it to you, but so you can swap out skins at any time. It's a little more complicated if you do want to swap out a skin, which we'll get into in a second, but it's actually pretty easy. Over here on the host side, let me show you this extensions thing. So extensions are pieces of programming, or skins are actually a wide variety of different elements that you can drop into your DNN instance. And it's basically you get this, you download DNN and you install it, and that's like out of the box, right? And then if you want to make it do other things, you basically add these extensions. And in this instance here, under modules, these are all the different programming things that I can drop into the website wherever I want to. If I want to have a blog somewhere, for example, I've got a module for that. And I can drop that in to my interface wherever I feel is necessary, and I'll get to that in a minute. As you can see, I've got a whole list here of modules. The vast majority of these come with DNN, but some of these I've actually purchased and added myself. But what I kind of wanted to show you is, here we go, skins. So here's where DNN just keeps a record of all the different skins that I've got on this instance. And again, once you load a skin into here, you can make that skin available to all your portals of your site. All right, so what exactly is a skin? Let's go back to, I'm going to go to my clients page here, because I'm actually going to, how many people like never update their own stuff? So I haven't updated this page in a while, and I actually built a site for a client back in December that I want to add to this. And I thought that'd be a good example of kind of showing how you can edit a page. So up here, this edit page button, this is kind of where all the magic takes place with working with the content. You've got to scroll over the edit page button, and then there's this edit this page, this blue button. If I click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to throw DNN into edit mode. It's going to actually allow me to edit my content. Before I do that real quick, check out this view and layout mode. This helps explain kind of what the skin looks like. So now I'm viewing my site in layout mode, and it's showing me, you can see where it says left side pane, content pane, 1 grid 8. All of these different locations is where I can put a module, I can put content, I can put functionality. So a skin is, think of a skin as basically like a grid. How many people have worked with Bootstrap? Bootstrap? So, you know, the Bootstrap framework basically has your 12 columns. So kind of think of it like 12 columns and 12 rows. It's like a grid. And then the skin defines some of these places within that grid where you can put content, where you can put functionality. And when you put DNN into layout mode, it actually shows you where those go. Now when you buy the skin, the vendor will actually have examples of how all this works, and you're not like guessing and such. Again, I'm throwing a lot at you really quickly. But you can see kind of the layout of your skin just by going into this view and layout mode. So I'm just going to get back out of that. All right, so what I'd like to do is this is the site that I was talking about that I actually created for a client. My wife actually works with this DJ service, and I built this in December. Now, does the framework of this design and the colors kind of look familiar? It's the same skin that I used to build my site. And that's what he wanted, and I said, that's perfectly fine, I don't mind. But the point is that this is a separate portal, this is a separate website, leveraging the exact same skin. And I didn't have to like do anything special to make that happen, I just picked it. So this is the website that I'd like to add to my list over here. I've got this secondary sites we host and update regularly. So in DNN, if you want to make a change, understand you're not making changes to individual HTML files. You're running an application, you're working within the application. So I can come up here and I can click on edit this page. And now DNN has entered edit mode. And you'll notice that every module, every element in here has these 3 buttons, these 3 little gadgets. The first little gadget looks like a little pencil, and that's to actually edit the content in that. We call these areas panes, P-A-N-E, it's like a window pane. So your template is made up of these individual panes, and then you drop content and functionality into those panes. And each pane actually can be styled in a different way. So there's 3 buttons here. There's a edit, so I can edit the content. There is a settings where I can change a wide variety of parameters associated with that module. And then there's like a movement icon where I can actually move modules anywhere within the template that I want. So part of the challenge of a CMS, you kind of have to think a little differently. You don't have like just a HTML page to work with anymore. What you're really doing is you're working with these individual pieces, and you're plugging them into your overall template or your overall skin. So I want to work with this one. So I can come down here, scroll down a little bit, and I can roll over edit content. And I get this big old what you see is what you get text editor. Now in DNN, if you really wanted a different editor, you can get them, you can buy them, you can acquire them. This is kind of what comes out of the box. And for my purposes at least, it works fine. Now, I like to just go into the HTML. I don't really work in the design side very much. But for people who don't have an HTML background, the design side works great. And they can just work in here and they can do their thing and they can add, edit, delete to whatever they got to do. So I like to go in here because I know I need to grab one of these divs. So I'm just going to like grab this content here. And actually I think I want to put it right here. So I'm just copying and pasting some code. I'm going to change this to Madison Mobile DJ Service. And of course I'm going to change the URL, madtowndj.com. And I guess I'll put a little bit of a Madison's Premier DJ Service, and I'll fix this later. So I imagine most of you are familiar with just doing some basic HTML editing like that. Like I said, I could have just copied this in here and I could have worked totally in the design view. I elected to work in the HTML, but that's it. So I made a content change, and down here there's a good old save button. So now in my content, here's my new entry that I just made. And that would take me to that other site. So editing content's pretty easy. Let's say that I wanted to add a new module to this. Let's do the old familiar hello world sort of thing. So up here, you see it says modules, pages, and users. If I go to modules and add new module, this will open up a window up here at the top. And it's showing me every module that I have available in my instance. Remember back when we were on the host and I was showing you all those different modules and that scrolling down? Well, these are basically all the same things, except now what I can do is I can either drag and drop a module right directly onto my workspace, right in my page, or I can roll over this little icon up here, and what's displayed here are all the different areas of my template, all those different panes. So I can just select one, and like if I select add to content pane, it's going to take that module and actually drop it right into my content area. There it is. Now I wouldn't want an account login module to be on this page, but that's how DNN works. Basically, you find the module that you want, you decide where you're going to put it, and then you can either drag and drop it in, or you can just select up here which pane you want it to go into.
Do they have modules that will get data from a database and display it?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to get to that. The real reason why I really like DNN is because I can code against it. You know, the other, Drupal actually has some good functionality for connecting to the database as well and actually drawing out data and such. I'm a Visual Studio person, I admit it. And I'll show you here in a minute, I've actually done a whole bunch of custom programming in DNN. And you can go into Visual Studio, you can write modules, you can build your own modules if you can't find ones that work for you. And then you can add them in.
Do you also have the ability to, say, you created a custom module or something and you want to search, where have I put this module? And it'll give you a result of what pages have that?
That's what this drop-down does right here. So when I drop this down, you see it says admin, common, developer, Hillsman Way, and all. Right now it's set to all, so it's showing me all my modules. But I can select, if I select common, for example, it's only going to show me my HTML module, which is the one that you use by far. That's just the one that you use for adding text and graphics and such like that. This one, Hillsman Way, is actually a namespace that I created in the DNN application. And I've set it up so that any module that I create myself for DNN will show up when I select that. So for example, I built this, I called it a media novel. It's basically just a novel with multimedia elements. I'll just demonstrate that real quick. I've got this. So sometimes you can't find a module that does what you want it to do. So you got to write one yourself. I got into all this because way back in the day I wrote a novel. And I tried to get it published, and I hooked up with a publishing company that wanted to do this newfangled multimedia thing on CD-ROM. This was like back in the late 90s. And long story short, here, let me cut this, is I wanted to see how you would go about actually building modules for DNN. That was kind of my goal in this. And what I created here is, this entire skin, by the way, is Bootstrap. It's Bootstrap 3. So you can go out to the DNN store and you can find zillions of skins that are all built on top of Bootstrap. And because I was actually able to build a module in Visual Studio that leveraged Bootstrap. And it was just a matter of setting up the span tags and all that. So what I've got going on here is I have calls to the database that actually knows what page you are on in the novel. It knows what text to bring in, what music clip to play, what graphic to display. I've got some controls down here where I can go to the next page, for example. This one has a video clip. There are other pages that have audio clips. So there are all these multimedia elements, but the point is that it's all programmed. This is all one big honking module that I created from scratch, and I was able to add to the DNN framework. So in DNN, the skins are like the basic thing that you've got to decide on. You got to get a skin, you drop it in, you start building pages. As you build pages, then you go in and you start building your modules, you start dropping your content in. And if you want functionality, again, it's all up here. So add your module. You can add, or you can basically clone modules from other modules if you want to. This create module, again, that's how I actually built some custom modules from scratch. So I think that's a real quick rundown of DNN. Again, I threw a ton of stuff at you, and I don't expect anyone to walk out of here thinking, oh, okay, I know how this works. But
So the back end is just ASP.NET, or?
DNN is essentially just a big .NET application. And I was going to actually try to set up my laptop today to show you what it looks like on the server side. And if you want to see that, I'd be more than happy to show it to you. I can VPN into my Rackspace account, and I can show you everything and how the database works. But the really cool thing about this is that once you set up DNN, once you set up the database, you get all those connections working, you virtually never have to go back to the database. It's all managed through the application. So in one place, you can do everything. You can manage your skins, you can manage your portals, you can manage all your users. So admin, user accounts. You can set up roles in DNN. So by default, there's a registered role for people who have logged in. There's an administrative role. I've got some sites out there where I've actually created my own roles because I want different people who have different business needs to be able to do different things. I don't have a lot of people in this site here, but I've got some sites with hundreds and hundreds of different users. So all this functionality, it's all built into the framework. And it's just a matter of learning how the framework works and then going from there.
So like SharePoint and other .NET-based CMSs, does this do any out-of-the-box integration with Active Directory or?
So there are modules available. If I go up here, Active Directory, for example. There you go.
Yeah.
.NET Nuke is a little expensive as far as like someone like me. I'm a one-man show and I'm running it on my own server, and if I could go back 10 years, I'm probably just using something like Drupal or Joomla or something like that. But I got into this. I used .NET Nuke basically to replace my web manager system that I was using to run. I had like 50 business clients at the time. And I got to the point where I could not keep up with the custom programming. Just could not keep up. And this came along, and I've spent like the last 6 years migrating all my sites over, and I finally did it. I got finished last year. It took me a long time to get it migrated over. And I've got like 12.5 sites that were in the older DNN 6 version that I just migrated last weekend. And that was quite the story, but I got all that finished as well. So like I said, I'm running like 5 instances, and I've got like, I don't know, 40 or 50 sites all together. And I can do it all by myself.
Are there any state agencies that are using this currently, or?
No, I don't think so. I don't think in Wisconsin, but if you go out here, I forget where exactly it is, but there's a page in here that's dedicated to all the people who are using it. As far as the ASP.NET environment, DNN is by far the most popular. There are other .NET CMSs out there. This is like installed in 100,000 different places or something. That's some crazy number. Like I said, these guys have been around for, well, 13 years now.
Yeah, the last time I used it, it was the free open source version before they actually incorporated. So.
Yeah, and that goes back a ways.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm actually running the free open source version. Yes, it's open source. You can actually download the source code if you want, but then you got to maintain it, and that becomes quite the nightmare. So I really like this approach where I can just build custom modules and drop that into the framework. I let DNN Corporation deal with the framework and updating it, and so on and so forth. I can still have all the functionality that I want.
So Nate pointed out with Drupal how often he ends up having to do, security updates. What's it like for you?
So up here, you can see the DNN logo that appears. If there's a new version, it'll show up and tell me. And it'll tell me like, is this version like, do I really need to upgrade now, or is it just kind of, hey, we've done a few things, you don't have to do it right now. I've never like read something and thought, oh my God, this is a security risk, I need to go into DNN and do something about it. I've always just tried to maintain, not necessarily the latest version, but at least be within like 1 or 2 or 3 versions. So I keep it up to date pretty well, but in fact, I think this instance is the very latest 7.3.3 or something like that.
And so for any of your, I'm sorry to keep asking so many questions, but for any of your customers, do you have anything set up where you have like a production and a development or test environment so that they've got like a staging area they can try things out?
I've got test sites for them.
Mm-hmm.
I could bring them up if I could go to test.whatever.com. But my experience has been you don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
My experience really has been when I built my media novel, and I've got some other sites that I've done some custom programming, I've dropped DNN on my desktop. So it was running locally, it was running localhost. And that was kind of a bear to get up and running. But once I got that up and running, what I did is you go into the web config file, and that's where you display or code where you want the database to be. And as long as I'm connected through VPN, I can actually connect to the remote database using my local instance. And I found that actually work out really well. So I know that there are folks out there who have separate environments and then they have to do the migration thing. I think it's kind of, I don't do it. I just work on production. My databases are backed up on a nightly basis, and my web files are backed up on a weekly basis.
On a more kind of personal note, but it'll give me an idea of how easy this is to use. Do you have people at IPA using this directly?
Well, you're familiar with IPA?
Yeah, I was the webmaster for about 11 years there.
Oh, yes. So, we could swap stories here. But
Oh, yeah. But if they were actually using it,
So,
You know.
do you know Michelle at IPAW? Michelle Jessic?
No.
Okay, so Michelle,
No
going
comment.
into this so what happened was, this organization, Invasive Plants Association of Wisconsin, had an older site. You know, you did your thing at the time, and they wanted to kind of move to something newer. And so they approached me, and I recommended a DNN solution. And the gal that I worked with, her name is Michelle. She is like a part-time administration person. No web background whatsoever. I sat down with her over a series of Tuesdays. She'd come into Jeff2, and I'd meet her for lunch. And on my iPad, we'd connect with this thing. And I put the framework in, and I dropped some of the content in. She did like 80% of the site on her own.
So you didn't have a committee?
She was more the committee side, but they basically just said, hey, do it. So we copied pages, and we got it in. And some of this stuff got a little challenging for her. Most of it's just content, and I forget where it is. But there are some pages where we had to use special modules to pull data out of the database and actually display it on the page. And, DNN, again, there's a whole bunch of modules out there that you can get for free if you know where to look. And I forget what it's called. It'll come to me in a second. But there's a special module where you can basically say, show me the data, or show me rows in this particular table or this particular database, and then just spit it out on the screen and put it into this format. And it's not real interactive, it's a data dump. It's a SQL call, it's really all it is. But she did that on her own. I was like really impressed. So it took her 3 months or so to kind of go from start to finish on this. And when she had some problems, like for example, the donate page, there's this mechanism to get your membership through PayPal. Well, the DNN application already has the form tags in it, and then this little widget also had its own form tags, and they were clashing. So I had to go in and write some special code. Really all I did is I wrote some HTML files and put them in the right place so DNN could find them and work with them appropriately. So, here's Michelle right here.
You have multiple people actually adding content and changing things, or is it just?
Some sites, there's a site up in Sun Prairie, for example, Sun Prairie United Methodist Church. They have a whole team that works on their DNN site. So I go up there like once a year or so, and I spend an afternoon with them. Okay, here's the latest and greatest. Here's what you need to know about DNN. And they absorb that, and then they do their thing, and I see them next year. And they've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years. So I like this from a programming standpoint, that I can go in and do anything I want, but I also like it because, honestly, complete noobs can go in and at least have an idea of what's going on. And they'll certainly still need some training. But if Michelle could do this. Okay, so I'm probably out of time. Again, I've got some business cards if you want to hit me up. Certainly you can email me at any point if you've got other questions. And then perhaps next time or sometime in the spring, if you want to see, I do all this in Joomla as well. If you want to see how Joomla works and kind of get a tour of that, I'd be more than happy to present. Okay.
All right, thanks, Scott. If you see him, this change up here while I'm talking, let me know.
I'll give you the sign.
I don't know if I have to click on or whatever. I've never used this join me.
I'll give you the sign.
All right, folks. We're waiting for the presenter to come online here. I don't know. Brian says he's going to give me the sign if something happens here. I haven't used the service in the past, so I guess I don't know what to expect. But what we've got here is we've had a lot of questions recently about accessibility, testing, compliance, And there are several services out there. I happen to have a phone conversation with a guy from a place called Site Improve. And they do have a relationship in some states with the folks that are managing our portal, WIN, the Wisconsin Interactive Network, or NIC is the parent company. And they've worked in the past. I don't know that they have an agreement here in the state of Wisconsin with Site Improve. I'm not sure. Michael, you're shaking your head?
No, I've heard of them.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you had some sort of knowledge, but anyway, the hope is that if nothing else, they can at least explain what their service provides, you know, in regard to accessibility, compliance, and monitoring. They also have analytics, so I think their product does some other things as well. Obviously, I don't know if it takes the place of Google Analytics or, you know, the depth of information that you would have, but it has that. It seems like there's another component, but I off the top of my head, I can't remember what else they do, but hopefully, hopefully they'll come online here. You know, I wonder, has anybody used this before? Okay. It looks almost like we've got something up here that, Anybody want to take any chances here? Who feels lucky?
Can't read any.
Conference access. Boy, I tell you, it says we're waiting for the presenter, but I'm a little itchy about this whole thing. I would find it hard to believe that somebody that is trying to sell us services isn't ready to go.
Do we have volume on this?
Yeah. Yeah, we have some. We heard
Yeah.
Scott's music.
Where are they at? You told them simple.
They know where we're at.
Yeah, just check.
They know where
Yeah.
Wisconsin is, are you sure?
Yeah, well, like I said, they're trying to make money. I would find it hard to believe they're not itchy here. I'm going to take a chance here. Oh, and of course, nothing's happening.
Okay.
Oh,
All right, I guess I don't have to take a huge chance because nothing's happening. All right, well, we'll give these guys a couple minutes. Just so we didn't catch anybody off guard, I was thinking about this during the break, or I shouldn't say during the break, but while we were, Scott was getting the computer set up again. In regard to the questions, you know, we're going to ask the information about your technology platforms and whatnot. At DWD, we're looking at revamping our intranet, and we were hoping to touch base with anybody who's got an intranet that they've recently redone or something they're really proud of, and just kind of, I don't know, talking about what you're using and.
Not proud of, but.
Oh, well, all right, maybe proud isn't the right word. Maybe it's more, it's working for you.
It doesn't suck.
Yeah, I mean, if your agency's like ours, we've built and built and built, and we just have like kind of a mess. And we're hoping to kind of clean it up, rein it in. In a perfect world, we would have something that would be a content management system of some sort that would be, that our technology shop would be happy with. You know, we're a Microsoft shop, so I guess we have to look in that direction. And it's going to probably be a situation where we have to be really diligent about writing our business requirements so that they can say, all right, here's what you need, here's what, you know, we can do for you, and then kind of go from there.
Don't go with Life Ray.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Not happy, huh? She said, don't go with Life Ray.
Yeah.
So,
We really don't like their support.
okay,
Which
good to know.
essentially doesn't exist.
But anyway, just so nobody's caught off guard here. Actually, I'm going to call the guy here. So why don't we?
I wonder what happens when you click on that.
Well, I clicked and nothing.
Nothing else.
Oh, the thing in the center.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know.
Well, what the heck? It's the best idea we have now.
Hers is not
It's
even
not
changing.
Yeah. Let me just call the guy and we'll see what's happening.
Yeah, you may have to get close to a window to get a signal. It's Faraday cage. Do you have a signal?
Yeah. The data's a little iffy, but the phone looks
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah,
Where do you do the service now?
Verizon.
What?
that's what I got, yeah.
Yeah, you got,
It's 3G, but, you know.
I can sit at my desk and it'll say, I've got 4 bars. If I try to send a text, it says, oh, can't do it, try again later. I have to go sit by the window, then I can do it.
Sometimes if I sit like this, I have a connection. If I turn around.
It's like the commercial where they're walking around looking for the signal.
I read some. They put it out there.
Somebody just told me that they got a ridiculous amount of powder out there on the
Yeah.
East Coast. And, you know, normally it's just like here, it's like always like
Really?
you know. They've been getting a lot of stuff. Yeah. You have friends out in Vermont?
No, I used to live in upstate New York, so.
Me too. Where did you live?
Elmira. It's, so on the dog jaw, it's about down here, so it's midway across the state.
Yeah, okay. How far is it? Albany?
Like 3 hours. It's like,
Isn't Albany over there too?
Albany's north up the Hudson and way more to the east than Elmira.
Oh, okay.
We're closer to Ithaca.
Yeah, I thought you were pretty close.
No, Elmira is directly south of Ithaca.
Oh.
Cornell, the Finger Lakes area.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you went coast to coast and now you're in the middle.
Well, I grew up here, so that was why I had to appeal my residency status. They didn't want to give me an in-state tuition.
Is your partner from here too?
Yeah, we live like across the street from his middle school.
Wow.
So his parents are 6 blocks away.
Not answering.
So not only are they not on, they're not answering.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell.
But +1 for them.
Yeah.
All right.
Want to do your Joomla presentation?
All right. Well, I'm not able to reach the guys. I don't know what's going on here. They don't look like they're joining us. And nobody answered. So I should say I got voicemail. So I don't know what to think here. So I guess we're going to have to shelve them for another time. Does anybody have anything else that we can fill our time with here, or are we going to call it a day?
Well, if you want, I can do the Zoom with them.
If you,
I'd be curious.
Can we do a quick like who's who, or how much I've never been to this before? Does everybody know everybody?
No,
No.
everybody keeps changing.
Yeah.
well, I know Matt.
Would that be?
All right, I'm Dane. I'm a web person over at the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. So I assume just by the crowd you're sitting with, you're in Jeff 2. We're in Jeff 1.
Cool.
I'm Marcia Vomastic. I'm the webmaster for the lottery.
Okay.
And I'm Michael Hampton. I'm the DOR webmaster.
I'm Mary Campbell, and I'm the webmaster for the Education Communications Board.
Grant Westfall, DWD, Jeff Gordon.
Brad Allaby, DWD. These guys.
Stu Boak, I'm with the Department of Veterans Affairs.
I'm Jimmy Walker. I work for DNR and the Bureau of Science Services. I do their web publishing stuff. So it's like one level below the folks who run the web stuff.
Nobody else from DNR wants to talk?
I'm DNR. I'm Chris.
You're a DNR. You are a DNR.
Chris Walsh, DNR.
Colleen Robinson Group, DNR Education Outreach for Forest Hill Program.
You guys from DNR. Yeah, Jeff.
Okay.
Annie Else, DSPS.
Nancy Strife, Department of Corrections, and the intranet of the web project.
Bill Hernke, Department of Financial Institutions, Webmaster.
Dr. Miles, DNN as well.
Okay, I was kind of hoping we'd have somebody from DOT here. They're migrating their content to the WIN content management system right now, and
That's probably why they're not here.
yeah, well, that's what I heard at the last meeting. They're running, I don't want to say behind, but their project was flagged as at risk because I think they're, I guess that means they're running behind in a very polite fashion. But they, I would just like to hear it from their side of things. Well, I mean,
Where do you think, because I know that there's a change request,
yeah,
possible change request to the system that would have to go through all the levels of
Yeah.
before it became reality. Have
Yeah.
Anybody here heard what they want to change on that?
I am. Does anybody else is anybody else in the pipeline to use their system yet?
We
Okay.
are kind of,
I mean, are you
we'll
active?
see.
Okay, so you're not actively,
Where we are. We'll see.
so nobody's putting content in though right now, right? Correct? Okay.
We want to shove somebody else under that bus first and see how it works.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's sort of what we were doing or did, or we didn't want to be the first ones either.
Yeah.
I mean, and I shouldn't say it like that. Not that we would have had the opportunity anyway, because I think they wanted to take DOT first, a larger agency, and establish a record of success. But
Well,
yeah.
DWD already has a fairly large SharePoint install, so.
Yeah, although we're not really using it for web content management.
Right.
It's more team sites and
Yeah.
connections. Okay.
Well,
You know, it'd be a
for
different
our
install.
internet, just in case you're interested, we use IBM's Web Content Manager. But I can show that to you sometime.
Okay. And are you loving it?
Are we loving it? It's fine, it works.
Okay.
We're
All right.
upgrading.
Yeah. Oh, you are upgrading it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're in the process of upgrading right now.
All
So
right.
you didn't dislike it enough to try to find something else, so.
No.
Okay. Well, if we're good, Scott, if you don't mind jumping in on the Joomla. I mean, I guess this will be the Scott Uelsman day. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
You can always listen to your website too.
Yeah, that's your hair.
But she's, yeah, moves there are, there, I imagine, not grizzly, probably just black. Black or brown, it's very different from black and brown. Well, yeah, grizzly bear, they're mean mofos.
That's crazy.
They're huge. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of cars, they hit the moose up there.
Yeah, that pretty much does it in for the car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when I left California, I was looking at possibly going to Alaska because they had programs. But I was checking out the University of Alaska Fairbanks website and there was a moose warning. I'm like, what the hell? Apparently somebody had been killed in front of the State Union by a moose. They came around a snowbank.
Warning.
Yeah, they'd come around a snowbank and there was a mother moose there with her calf and she trampled it and killed her because she felt that he threatened her calf. I'm like, I'm just leaving a place with earthquakes, I don't have to worry about rampant moose.
Is there any place that's safe?
If I can deal with it.
Okay, you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
So we'll switch gears. And I'm going to go from the Microsoft Windows environment to more of the open source PHP MySQL environment. So Last month we had a presentation on Drupal, which is I think the number 2 CMS out there after WordPress, and Joomla is likely number 3. So you kind of have WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla to kind of pick from if you want to do the pure open source PHP sort of thing. I got into working with Joomla back in, I'd say 2006, I think. This organization here, the Wisconsin Conference of the United Methodist Church, they're up in Sun Prairie, and they're kind of a management entity for all the United Methodist churches across the state. There's like 450 churches. They don't have like any regulatory authority per se, but they kind of just help out, do what they can for all the different churches. And they run a website, and when I first met with them, they had just created a brand new Joomla 1.0 site. And they hired somebody in Kansas City to build it, but they never thought about who's going to maintain it. And again, I had kind of a strong CMS background, and I stepped in and I've become their webmaster. I've been doing it for like 8 years. So just a little bit of history on this site. About 4 years ago, we recognized Joomla 1.0 had seen its time, and it was really time to move on to something else. And to make a long story short, the conference contracted with a company out east to build a Drupal site. And I was kind of not put in charge of it, but since I was the webmaster, I worked with them on a kind of a day-to-day basis. Every Wednesday afternoon, I'd go up there and spend a couple hours with them, and oh boy, did it turn out to be a disaster. So about 2 years ago, I basically sat down with the communications director and said, Drupal's not going to work for us. Drupal, I showed it to Chris. There's a cartoon out there. If you look up Drupal learning curve on Google or something, there's this cartoon where it shows the relative learning curves of the different CMSs, and then they show Drupal going way up like this, and then having people hanging from the neck and people dying and a bulldozer pulling them into the grave, and it is kind of a challenging platform to work with. And I'm just one guy. I was working on this part-time. So we decided, even though the original site was in Joomla 1.0, we decided to just upgrade to 2.5. And then ultimately we went to Joomla 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through a real quick show and tell. This is the front end. This is what people see. This mechanism right here, this rotating ad, is actually kind of cool because it's also part of the article system that Joomla has. So when we create articles for our website, we're actually populating this header component automatically. And Joomla has, I would say, a lot of functionality. Someone just asked me, DNN or Joomla. It kind of depends on what platform you're going to be running on. If you're going to be running PHP or a Linux environment or whatnot, this is a really good way to go. I find comparing Drupal and Joomla, I think Joomla is just easier. It may not be quite as powerful, but it's close. So,
both sites are fully responsive?
Oh, gosh, I wanted to really get into the whole responsive thing. Yes. That was like one of the big first requirements we made 2.5 years ago, that these sites would be responsive. So I can minimize this, and you can see now it's showing me the menu, and it's doing this sort of thing, and I can still navigate, but all my content's in one column. I'm really big into the whole responsive thing, everything that I design. And I wanted to go into the DNN side of that too. All that stuff that I show, it's all responsive. It's like a pet peeve of mine. So, unlike DNN, where you log into the same interface and then you just work in the various modules and elements, Joomla has like its own administrative backend that you log into. So I've done that, and this is the first thing that you see. So up here at the top is a series of menu items, and basically you select what you need to work with. So in Joomla, it kind of comes down to building 3 things. You've got to build articles, you've got to build categories, and you've got to build menu items. So if you're like creating a Joomla site, see you, Jeff. if you're creating a Joomla site from scratch or working on one, the first thing you would be wanting to do is going into content, and you want to work with the category manager. And categories are like, think of Windows Explorer, where you've got all your folders, and you can have folders inside of folders, folders inside of folders. You can go up to whatever degree you want. That's basically what you're doing here, is you're just creating buckets. You're creating like your framework for your site. So I had to go in and working with the team. Now this is just showing me 20 items at a time. So if I go to all, we probably have like over 100 categories. So again, you define your categories, and you can structure categories inside of categories and however deep you want to go. Then you've got to start creating your content. In Joomla, they're not really pages. You're not really building pages, you're building articles. And so there is an article manager. And an article, you can just think of it as a piece of content. It's kind of like a page. So in Joomla here, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles. And it gets a little difficult to search through them. So Joomla actually has mechanisms built into it to help you find the article you want to work on pretty quickly. So you built your categories, you build your articles, and you assign your articles to a particular category, so it makes it easier to find. So I can say, all right, what's all in the districts category, for example, and now Joomla is showing me all the articles that have been built for that category. So you end up taking all your content, and I'll show you a page of content in a second. But you build all your articles, and then you end up having to build menu items. And I'm basically talking about this menu up here. In Joomla, you go up to menus and you use this menu manager. And what's really cool about Joomla is that, there we go, for the most part, these items point to articles. Okay, so you kind of, you're used to like, I want to go to a particular page and I want to use a menu item to take me to that page. In Joomla, that's true, but it actually goes way beyond that, because you can also use the menu system to point to functionality. So, for example, you can see alongside here under each one of these menu items, it says articles, featured articles, articles, single articles. The single article, that's where a menu item is just pointing to an article that you created. But let's see if we can, well, here's one that goes to an external URL. Here, the easiest way to do this is just, let's pretend like we're going to make a new one. If you were to add a new menu item to Joomla, I click on the new button, and I guess it's still thinking. But what it's going to do is it's going to present a list of all this functionality that's built into Joomla that you can assign that menu item to. So for example, come up yet? There it goes. There we go. Menu item type. Click select. And this menu here, this is like all the functionality that's built into this Joomla instance. So for example, let's say I want to make an FAQs page. I can open up this FAQs and I can say, okay, I want it to have this single, show single FAQ functionality. So I'm tying a menu item to a discrete or a distinct element of functionality. So it can go beyond just content. I can set up all the content pages I want, but I can also link a menu item to a piece of functionality. So this is like I think the most challenging part of Joomla to understand. Just trying to tie menu items to whatever it is that you want to display. Out of the box, let's just cancel out of here. You can have all the All the users that you want, you can assign them roles and permissions and all that. You can have different groups, access levels. There is actually a mass mailing mechanism built in here. Don't use it. So I talked about the menus, content, components. In Joomla, there's components, there's modules, and there's plugins. Components are like significant enhancements to the framework. Out of the box, you actually get some of these, but I've added a whole bunch. So this AC mailing, for example, this component here, we added this to the system to run our newsletter system. So every week there's a gal at the conference. She does not have a web background, and she actually goes and builds these newsletters in Joomla. And then we have a whole series of lists that have thousands and thousands and thousands of folks in them, and that content gets emailed out to those people. It works really well, and again, part of that is that on the head or on the home page, that banner thing that was rotating, it's actually linked into this AC mailing component. So it's all kind of tied together. So we added a bunch of these. Some of them come out of the box, like I said. So components are major enhancements to functionality. Modules, module manager, they're not quite as extensive as components. They're just pieces of functionality that typically work on a single page. And the easiest thing to do is sort by title. And I'll say, show me all the modules. The vast majority of these modules that are in here, I had to create myself. But it's kind of like DNN, where you create the module and then you assign it to a particular location in your skin or your template. And most of these modules really are just kind of content elements. For example, I'm sure all of you with your websites have struggled with navigation at some point where you've got so much of it. It's kind of hard to deal with. If you've got 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 tiers of navigation where you can keep clicking down and down and down into the depths, how do you deal with that? So what we did is we decided with our main navigation, we were only going to have 3 levels. So ministries, outreach and service, this is all the further it goes. But with some of these, health and welfare, for example, some of them actually have more navigation than this. So what we did is we decided to build this left-hand menu system. So once you come to this like home page, there's all these additional options, and you could click into these and actually get deeper and deeper into the site. And so every one of these menus is actually a module in that module list I just showed you. So I had to create these menus kind of by hand, but I think that works out a lot better where we can get people to this content through the main menu, and then once they get here, if they need to go further, they can just use this left side navigation. It ended up working out really well for us. Like I said, some of these, I'm not exactly sure where, but I could click on some of these and they go even deeper. And then they've got their own menu systems assigned to them.
So this is like a secondary navigation?
Yes.
So can you go to the mobile view just to see how you handle it there?
So the way it works is, because in the template it's like the first thing in the upper left corner, the submenu will always show first. And this is a really big menu. It's normally not this big. But that means when you're in mobile view, you just have to deal with the menu every time you look at a page of content. But it's the first thing presented. So let's go to events, for example. See how the left-hand menu came up again? It's still showing the menu itself, but then it shows the content afterwards. You know, if we really wanted to, well, let's say that, I guess that's what we came up with. So, There's these are all modules, and then there's plugins in Joomla, which are just discrete elements of functionality. They only live on a single page. They just do one little thing. And Joomla has, out of the box, lots and lots and lots of plugins. For example, if you wanted to build an online form and you had like text fields and drop-down menus and that sort of thing, each one of those elements is kind of plug-in. And Joomla has that all like built in. There's a whole series of. So under extensions, you find the module manager, the plugin manager. Just like DNN, you can have an infinite number of templates, graphic templates that are in the system. Out of the box, though, Joomla does not work like DNN, where you can have multiple instances, or have one instance running multiple sites. It's one instance, one site. There are modules you can buy to plug into Joomla that will allow you to do the multi-site thing, but it's kind of scary. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Joomla is really best at just, if you got one big site or one site that you want to manage, you put in one instance of Joomla and you run with that. So, in a nutshell.
And they have a great selection of skins too?
Yeah, actually, Stu asked this before. DNN has really positioned itself to be more of a business framework. And their skins over the last couple of years, even though they're using Bootstrap, have gone really business, almost to the point where I call them sterile. They're just all rectangles, and they don't really have a lot of artwork or originality to them. Whereas Joomla, you can find some just absolutely beautiful skins out there. They look really nice and they function really well. They're quite responsive. It just seems like Joomla is more of a, I don't know, I don't want to say non-business, because you can definitely run business sites with Joomla, but it's kind of oriented more toward not-for-profit, don't have a lot of money. I want something that looks really nice, kind of elegant. So Joomla, you can learn a lot more about Joomla at joomla.org. So this is like their official site. You can download the framework, install it, do all the things that you need to do. And under Extend, they've got this extension directory. And I would challenge you to think of something that you need a website to do that's not in here. Someone said that last month with Drupal. There's a module for it. There really is a module for everything. And if you really couldn't find a module, I even found a module that builds modules. There's practically anything that you'd want in here. Same with skins. One of my favorite sites for skins for Joomla is this themeforest.net. Now this website is geared around a variety of CMSs. But you can kind of run through here and look at all the skins that you want. And these skins, you can see, are $48, $53, $48. I think it's Joomla 51. Yeah, Joomla 51. This is the place that I actually bought the skin for the Wisconsin conference site. So if we go back to the home page, here's the home page. And I come into here. They basically offer a new skin every month. And here is the skin that I had purchased. So I can run a template demo. And this should look a little bit like this. But as you can see how much I customized it. But you can see the menu system and where the logo goes, and as you scroll down, we've got these 3 elements right here, and I kind of got the same thing going on down here. So one thing that I really like about Joomla that I learned in the last couple of months is that any functionality that you purchase through a module or something that Joomla does, you can actually overwrite it. There's a way in Joomla where you can actually write your own code basically on top of the existing functionality. It's a little complicated, but it works. And so there were points in here where, for example, under About Us, they've got the staff directory. And if I just go to, well, just this element right here, for example. This looks pretty straightforward, 3 columns. Originally, this was messed up. It had all this stuff all over the place, and we really didn't like the way it worked. So there's a way of actually kind of overriding the default functionality in Joomla and saying, I don't want it to do this, I want it to do this. If you're a PHP coder, it's not hard at all. You just bring out the code and you make changes, and then it does its thing. So I'm finding that Joomla can do a lot. Okay, I don't want to bore you guys to death, so.
Well, I noticed when you were in the administrative console that under like the AC mailing module, it had an update. So do you have to, under components, yeah, update or about is the last option. So do you have to check for updates on each module?
When you first log into Joomla, the very first page that it will take you to, and this is the change log that you were just asking about, and I do actually need to update it. You can see it says your version is 4.6.2, but the latest is 4.8.1. So yeah, I gotta update this at some point. But when you first log in, it brings you to kind of like this synopsis page. Here it is. And down here you can see it says checking Joomla. What it will do is, first it'll look at the framework. I think right now we're running 3.3 or something like that. And then it'll actually go through all your modules and check those to see if they're all up to date. You can see right now it says updates are available, 1. Well, we just saw that. So for the most part, again, I keep these up to date, but
Does .NET do a similar thing? But it
It
doesn't
does.
really have a
it does.
admin interface like this.
Do you remember the page I showed you with all the modules on it? In there, it'll actually tell you what the latest version is and whether a newer version is out there. And then it'll even link to it, so you can click on it and go get it and bring it in. See you guys.
Thank you.
Dukem?
I have a question. A lot of us who do sites are concerned with giving our content experts access to certain areas of the website to update themselves. I think would be the ultimate beneficial feature of a CMS for our group. Between Joomla and .NET New, are one or the other better for like setting up the users and what they can manage and permissions and stuff like that? Is that straightforward, or does that get into modules and plugins and stuff?
I think it's pretty straightforward, and each system has its own way of doing things. So I don't know if I'd say one way is better than the other. But I will say that both platforms have all the functionality you could ask for to set things up in a certain way. I haven't had to get too much into the Joomla side because basically I'm the webmaster and I'm really the only person managing this. But again, this gal at the conference in Sun Prairie, I've been able to train her how to do some of this stuff, like the newsletter system. So she just has a super user account as well, and she gets in and she can do anything. But we're actually on the doorstep of doing exactly what you're saying. We're going to be going in here and we're going to be setting things up so certain people can only see certain things. So that's coming. Any other quick questions? Okay, well, 2 for the price of 1.
All right. Any questions or anything else before we adjourn here today? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll do better next time with the site improve demo.